Hey everyone, this is Ben. Real quick before we get started, I want to put out a plug for our Halloween contest. How it works, we're giving away a bunch of cool Halloween shit in the month of October. All you need to do is find us on Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, your choice, Overcast, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. I don't care. Find us, share us, review us, and you will get entries into a drawing. And throughout the month of October, we will give you free shit. Just do those things. You will get stuff. It makes everyone happy. Join us at the fire.
Thank you for joining us at the fire. This is Jill.
And my name is Ben.
And today we are discussing the Mount Pleasant Indian Industrial Boarding School.
That's correct. Or if you want to be politically correct, the Mount Pleasant Native American Industrial Boarding School.
Also known as the Mount Pleasant State Home.
And the Mount Pleasant Training School.
How many names does this place have, Ben?
It has probably 3-4 different names. It went through a lot of different owners, purposes, and there's a lot of history to this place. We actually have it's going to be probably a darker episode tonight. We have a listener story from someone who, during their time working for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe, actually had, part of their job was to go out to this place and check it out, help maintain the grounds, the buildings. And we're going to share the story that they sent over to us tonight.
This is a location that I actually used to see on a regular basis. I would go out to near a nearby wooded area to do some jogging sometimes. And I just remember passing this and just getting kind of an eerie feeling.
Yeah, if you drive down the road that it's on, you can see it from the road. It's really eerie. There are a lot of trees, like Jill said, it's a very wooded area, and just beyond the trees, if you're the passenger in the car and you're just staring into the trees, you will see these buildings from the late 1800s, and it's sort of terrifying.
So you said you have a couple stories from a listener that you're going to share with us today?
Yeah. Should I just go through it?
Whippy.
So like I said, this individual worked with the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe, was out to this property many times, as they'll go into in their words. This is what they had to say. It's located on South Crawford Road. It isn't fenced off or gated off or anything like that. You can walk in right from the road. Both city and tribal police patrol the area. They've had issues with homeless people taking residence in some of the buildings. College students try to get in there, hang out and do whatever. It's basically a safety issue, mainly because of the structural integrity of some of the buildings. I've been through all of the buildings. There's a dormitory, a gymnasium with a stage area, a church, and I think there's an administrative building. They're pretty old, run down obviously, not maintained. But the tribe does keep up with the grounds, maintains the landscaping, and boards up broken windows. The buildings are pretty much left as they were originally. Still to this day, there is a lot of equipment left inside of them. Some of the things that I saw inside there were rather disturbing. For instance, they have several small wooden chairs, like you'd find in a kindergarten class or something. They're bolted to 3x3 square plate steel, and there are restraining straps on the chairs. I saw in one of the buildings In a couple of the rooms, leg and wrist irons with chains that were bolted to the walls. There were some beds and what looked like cribs made out of metal, with metal cages over the top of them, I guess to keep the children inside. Talking to some of the tribal members, some terrible things went on inside there. From what I've heard and been told, there's upwards of 200 children that have passed while attending the school. There are supposedly graves throughout the property where they buried the kids without documenting any of the incidents. The circumstances surrounding the deaths were obviously not made public, so it's all pretty much just rumor. There's also a network of tunnels that connect all of the buildings together. Some tribal members say they moved the residents through these tunnels to conceal them in some situations. The tunnels were mainly used during the winter, when we used to have major snowstorms. They'd use them to get from building to building. Some of the tribal members refused to even enter the buildings. When we were in there, going around some of the buildings, there were a few tribal members present, and a couple of them became very anxious and very upset with some of the things they saw. I don't know if it was memories or stories they had been told by parents or grandparents, but as we were walking through the buildings, a couple of them went into a panic and had to exit immediately. They were just so frustrated with what they saw. There's a lot of division amongst the tribe on what to do with the property, to preserve or destroy the buildings. There's issues with asbestos and lead paint remediation. The countertops in the bathrooms and things like that are 1-inch thick, solid marble. The dividers between the bathroom stalls are marble. There's a lot of intricate, beautiful stonework. It's obviously very historically significant. They can't just tear it down. I can't say whether or not it's haunted, but it's clear that the past is very much alive at the Mount Pleasant Indian Industrial Boarding School.
Well, that's very sad and terrifying.
That is. It's...
In more ways than one.
And it wasn't uncommon. They built places like that across the nation in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
When reflecting on American history, we definitely have plenty of dark chapters in our book. But this is something that we often forget about. There wasn't just an initial takeover of land when we started establishing our settlements here. I mean, it's been kind of a battle for centuries.
You could say centuries, yeah. We've been battling the Native Americans, I feel like, since, the Europeans came here and thought, hey, we discovered America, but hey, turns out, no. It was discovered a long time ago.
Right. And you said these places, these boarding schools were established in the late 1800s, so not even 200 years ago.
Right. I read a few articles that said they closed as late as the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s in one article. So
the last 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's ridiculous to think they'd been open that long, but the idea was the government had spent so much money. The military was actually out there fighting the Native Americans constantly, and it became so expensive they decided it would be less expensive to capture and educate, train and civilize the Native Americans and make them people that can work in our society and improve the economy.
But it was really training for those industrial type of positions that often are viewed to be held by people of lower class society.
A lot of what I read, there was a little focus on education and a lot of focus on just training them to do manual labor.
What a life for a child. That sounds horrible. So what about the specific history about the boarding school in Mount Pleasant?
So this particular school was established in 1891, built in 1892, and then opened in 1893.
Right on schedule.
Right on schedule. Look at that. It later closed in 1933, but like you heard in the story, there's tales of a massive graveyard on the property there. Just no one knows how many graves. The rumor is hundreds.
Just buried
Unmarked.
wherever, unmarked on the property.
Yes, accidents like you heard in the story were undocumented, and this story backs up a lot of what you can read in the articles I'll share on the site.
So it closed in 1933, unmarked graves, children sent back home, I'm assuming, or left in society to fend for themselves. But you said when did it close officially?
So that's what makes this property that much more interesting to me. After it was done being an industrial boarding school, it later reopened a year later in 1934 as the Mount Pleasant State Home and Training School for the Developmentally Disabled. Low-functioning members of society, people with, well, at that time, people with Down syndrome were being put into these facilities. It wasn't a great place to be in the late 30s, early 40s. Later in the 50s, they added buildings. I guess conditions began to improve by the 70s. It underwent renovations, and it was renamed the Mount Pleasant Regional Center for Developmental Disabilities. Just kind of became a psych hospital. And then in the 2000s, they began shipping the criminally insane to the facility. It officially closed in 2010, but up until that time,
You're mixing two totally different types of people, two totally different populations under one roof.
Yeah, and that's really recently. It makes me kind of curious about the stability of our current system of dealing with mental health patients.
Right. Or criminals.
Well, both, I guess, in this instance.
So when was the place officially knocked down?
Yeah, so a lot of it is still standing. They demolished some of the buildings in 2013. I think they were still knocking some down up until last year.
Yeah, because whenever I would drive down that road, when I would go to the park nearby, you could see a couple of the buildings from the street that you're driving on. Not like where you'd go in for the main entrance, but you can see like kind of the back area. But the campus doesn't look too big from the road.
Yeah, I'm not sure completely what's left of it. I think some of the buildings they added in the 1950s are still there. You can tell they definitely weren't built in the 1800s. And I'll share some articles with some pictures inside. Still super creepy, filled with hospital equipment and shit like that.
Well, didn't we see one picture where there were chains and shackles to the outside of a building?
So that was one of all the brick buildings you can tell they were built in the 1800s. Those are part of the reform school. Yes, there's photos. You can see them in the article. There are just chains bolted to the brick, presumably on the outside of this building. And the shot's up so close, you can really see the bricks, and etched into the bricks, carved, scraped, are names of, I guess, kids that you can't count the names.
That's
there
so
are so
dark.
many.
That's so dark. That's so sad. I mean, spending your childhood chained to a wall, entertaining yourself by carving your name into bricks, your white name or your American name that was given to you, because they would strip these children of their identities, and they would try to turn these kids on the lives that they had before, their heritage. I think in one article that I read, some free time activities in these types of reform schools would consist of movies, and the genre would be cowboys and Indians. Who's the natural protagonist in that film? Who's the antagonist? The Indians are the antagonists. They're seen as the savages, the scourge on society. And as a child, you're just so young and impressionable. Your mind is a sponge, and you become self-hating. Oh, I'm rambling.
To go along with the sponge metaphor, you're being brainwashed.
Oh,
maybe.
there you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Yup. Very good job.
Sounds like a terrible place to end up. I found a couple clips of people recounting their stories of actually being in this facility. There's a documentary about this facility. I couldn't get access to the documentary itself, but I did find a segment of this one interview. This is Warren Petoskey of the Odawa/Lakota tribe.
They came into the house and took the children and loaded them on boxcars and then wagons and hauled them to the boarding schools. And the parents, in a lot of cases, didn't know where they went, and many of the women, it was said when they took the children from the home, they sang the child's death song, because they knew that that child, when that child came home, would never be the same again.
It sounds like a lot of these people who are being interviewed may not be the people who experienced life at the boarding schools firsthand. So these stories were so traumatizing to their elder generations that they were passed down from person to person. Almost as a, I don't know, I don't want to call it a horror story, but it kind of is.
Yeah, like the story says, it's a divisive topic amongst the tribal members there. Some of them don't discuss it. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear people talking about it. The listener didn't want us to know who they were. Presumably, I don't know, maybe because they didn't want people to know they were talking about what they saw. Some tribal members want to take that property and make it a museum. They're already preserving the property. It's historical. I don't know if it's a national landmark, but they have, well, you'll see it in the pictures. Like, you go to historic places and they have that big fucking green sign with the gold wooden text on it. They have 2 of those out there.
Not only because of the history is this place a scary urban legend in this college town, but also just the way it looks. It looks abandoned, torn down, beaten in.
It is abandoned. It is torn down. It has been beaten up, vandalized.
It just makes it so enticing to want to go there and explore for yourself. Probably very freaky to do at night, but
it's not safe. That's why the cops are out there.
Shooting
you
people,
fall through the,
shooting the trespassers.
They're not going to shoot you.
Yes, they will.
They're going to tell you to leave.
And they'll chase you
Quit
through the woods.
Quit being dumb and running through the condemned buildings.
And then you won't graduate.
You're going to kill yourself.
Please don't.
You won't graduate because you'll be fucking dead.
Well, Ben is very passionate about education. Anywho. So I found this really neat little article in the Morning Sun, the Mount Pleasant newspaper, and it shared that at least for one day, I don't know if this is an annual occurrence, but at least one day they were taking locals and anybody who wanted to attend a tour of the facility. They were actually taking them around the property. And I want to share kind of a snippet of the article that I found to be, I don't know, provide a first-hand account of some paranormal activity that somebody experienced.
Just a snippet.
Just a snippet. When the buildings were boarded up and abandoned, the decay and decades of stories led many to believe that the sprawling property was sprinkled with spirits. Mindy, who posted on Ghosts of America, said her husband and a friend snuck onto the property and entered one of the buildings via an unlocked door. As they walked down the steps of the lower level, they heard a large crash and then a boom, Mindy writes, adding that the 2 had just been in an empty room that was just above. After running outside in fear and trying to catch their breath, she said her husband heard his name being called in an eerie young girl's voice. He says the girl's voice was full of pain and literally left him emotionally feeling pain for several days afterwards. So, a lot of tragedy,
yes, definitely a lot of tragedy. Yeah, seriously, I don't have any idea about the Native American lore on spirits, and especially the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. I don't know their backstory, the Three Fires, the Anishinaabe, whatever. I don't know what they believe. But I know that there are people, like we heard in the story, that don't like going out there. That can't be out there. Can't physically be there.
Well, that fear is projected onto anybody who steps foot there. And it doesn't necessarily make you feel fear yourself. But people feeling sick, people feeling emotional, that just doesn't happen for no reason.
It's why they call it your gut. You
Yes,
feel it in your gut.
And just by driving past the facility on a dark night, alone,
Even in the daylight. It's tucked away in the woods like a secret.
I just want to drive a little faster so I get by a little quicker.
Yeah. If you didn't know it was there,
You wouldn't notice it.
the first time I saw it, I'm pretty sure I out loud went, "What the fuck is that?"
Did this just appear overnight? Like, where's this been?
Yeah.
But definitely, I don't think we'd advise anybody to sneak onto the property. We want to respect those of the tribe and those who have history there. But there are so many cool links that we want to share with you guys. I think Ben stumbled upon a couple of really neat Tumblr pages that he wants to give a link to.
No,
Oh, never mind.
Flickr.
Not Flickr. Oh,
No,
wait. No, it is Flickr.
It is Flickr. It's not Tumblr.
I don't
You
know.
gotta get your social media straight.
I don't know these things. I feel like an elderly
You're
woman.
a smart girl, Jillian. Get your fucking social medias in line.
Speaking of social media, Ben, when's the last time you let out a twatter?
Let's see. Look at all these pictures I found. It's really creepy. I'll put them on the site.
The well
There's
is actually, you can see the well from the road. That's pretty
It's
cool.
a reflecting pond.
The reflecting pond.
It kind of looks like a reflecting puddle
Yeah.
now. Yeah, there are photos of the inside. You don't need to go sneaking inside, like Jill said.
I didn't say to sneak inside.
Okay.
You're going to give me a bad rap. Rap? I don't have a rap. I haven't been arrested.
Yeah, this is a great article. I don't know who wrote it. Nailhead
On Flickr.
on Blogspot.
How many social media sites are there?
It's endless, really. There are new ones every day, I believe. We want to thank our listener tonight for the submission. Extremely cool details that you can't find online
You
about
can't
that
find
place.
them online. No.
No.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we want to help tell your stories. Make sure that you go to our Submit a Story page on our website. And if you want to be like this listener and stay anonymous, don't check the box that allows us to contact you. But if you want all your glory, go ahead and check that box and leave your contact details. But don't stop there. Hit us up on iTunes, rate and review. Hit us up on the Google Play Store. Hit us up on Stitcher. I think I already said Facebook, YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel and the OG SoundCloud. It's where this whole thing started. Go ahead and your favorite episode so we know which ones you want us to expand on.
Rate and review. Share with your friends.
Every time you do something to give us some love, we give you a point, and you have a higher probability of winning one of our kick-ass Halloween grab bags.
Get into that contest. Get into it many times.
If you like what we're doing, share with your friends, share with your family, share with any weirdo that you see on a bus reading a scary story.
Yeah. We just got a couple really cool books in the mail today. Bunch of scary stories.
Those came today?
We're going to be checking out those. Hopefully sharing with you soon.
Hopefully getting some of the storytellers themselves on here. If you want to be a guest storyteller, make sure to check the Go Ahead Contact Me box when you submit your story. We'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah. And if you know some great reads, some good movies, hit us up. Let us know.
Share it on our Facebook page because you know those weirdos are going to love that stuff too.
I feel like this plug has gone on way too long.
So we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
As you should every night. This is Jill.
And you know me. I am just Benjamin. I Benjamin. See what I did there?
So we're going to take off, and you take care. And we look forward to sharing your story at the fire.
Thanks again for listening. Good night, everyone.